Hello and welcome back to Chronicles, where today we're going to be talking all about Ghost Stories of an Antiquary by M.R. James. And joining me today is special guest Chloe from the splendid channel Proper Horror Show. Thank you, Chloe.
Thank you very much, Luke. Thanks for having me on. It's a pleasure.
No, not at all, because this was your idea. This was entirely your idea, and I'm grateful to you, extraordinarily grateful that you chose it, because it wasn't on my radar. It was not something, because I'm unlike you. I'm a wimpy coward who's not a huge fan of horror, or certainly has never really just thrown myself into the genre. So to do this and read these stories about the supernatural and written with such style and character as well. No, it was a real treat for me.
Well, I'm delighted. The thing is, you've been covering serious literature, and I just realised spooky season was coming up, and I thought, can I crowbar some fripperies in?
Absolutely.
Some vaguely seasonal connections to make it happen, but I'm really glad you liked them.
Yeah, well, what I ended up doing was, because they're short stories, they're all about 15 to 20 pages each, and I think there's about 7 or 8 in here. What I ended up doing was reading one a night, and that would always, it seemed to put me in the mind where every time I go to bed, I'd have varying degrees of terrifying nightmares based on how much the story had affected me. And so I'm almost able to rank the stories by how bad my dreams were the night after I read them.
Oh, nice.
It was a lot of fun. I really enjoyed them. I enjoyed them a lot. So where did you first come into contact with these stories?
First exposure would be the 1970s BBC adaptations. Now, I caught them somewhat after the fact, but I got a bit of a taste for them. They're these wonderful TV productions done in that BBC style of the 70s. And as much as they aim to actually give you a good fright, I'd say the key word I'd associate with them is charming. They hit you with charm first before that sort of ominous style of James gets in there, and I loved those, and that prompted me to go back into the source material, look around, and it was an absolute delight.
Because these stories were, for those who don't know, this book was first published in 1904, right? And M.R. James was very much a man of the Victorian era, first and foremost. So. You know, he was born in the 1860s, I believe. And it seems to have been, we were talking about this on the way to the office, that a remarkable man, because actually this was really just something of a side project for him. He was, first and foremost, one of the great medievalist scholars of his age, an absolute authority on medieval manuscripts, and responsible for a few excavations and discoveries as his own, as well as being provost of Cambridge, Eton, and as a vice-chancellor, I believe, by the end.
Yes, indeed. So he bounces between those two institutions, and he's overseeing these amazing times in history. You know, Freud's writing, which I don't think he was all that keen on, but we'll gloss over it. He's sort of writing when this genre is maturing and getting a touch of modernism to it, which sort of threads into his work. Some things that strike me as quite modern are in there. And he's sort of writing against the the granting of degrees to women. He's arguing with John Maynard Keynes. What's not to like? You know, it won me over already.
It was our guy. Yeah,
very much so.
You do get this common pattern as well, don't you, throughout his these stories, is that wouldn't it all have been simpler if you just decided not to meddle in things that you don't understand?
Yes, absolutely.
It seems to be the common theme.
There's wonderful subtext to that, isn't there?
Yes.
Yes, he's absolutely fascinating, and it sort of struck me quite similar to Lovecraft in a little. Now Lovecraft's writing a little bit after. They're overlapping, but Lovecraft is following James here, and also that theme of delving deeply, which is delving deeply, finding something a bit disturbing, is often the subtext of that.
Yes, especially for the archetypal character that James seems to use, not always in this collection, but generally, which is a very, very educated, rational man, who basically comes into some supernatural encounter that he can't explain, and because it contradicts his rationalism so severely, it makes it all the more terrifying.
Yes, he likes to do that. I think certainly writing what he knows. So a couple of the stories are directly just, it's his life. It's someone in a university explaining their studying of ancient manuscripts and visits to find such, and that's very much drawn from his own life. So Canon Albrecht's scrapbook is clearly drawn from notes that he made whilst doing an actual visit to the place that he's talking about. So
right, because he was well travelled as well, wasn't he? Yes. So one of the things that I discovered media-wise, you mentioned the BBC versions as well. One of the things that I found, which I found so charming, was in the early 2000s with some productions with Sir Christopher Lee, obviously famous man of horror, and they present it all in the style that M.R. James himself would have first told these stories. So it's Sir Christopher Lee sitting as M.R. would have done at Cambridge, and what I understand to have happened was in 1893, M.R. James was writing his first ghost stories, and he wrote Canon Albrecht's scrapbook and Lost Hearts, which are the first two stories of this collection. And then from there, it became a tradition that he would tell some new stories every Christmas Eve to all the other gentlemen, obviously, students and dons, and a wonderful little tradition, of course, and it'd all be told by candlelight. Very atmospheric. Certainly something to bring back, I think, into many a household as well.
Absolutely, it's a cozy sort of the depiction I got in. I had a couple of volumes of it, so I have the complete collection here with a lot of explanatory notes, which I needed more than I'm happy admitting. He is writing in the 1890s. And I have this version, which is just lovely version from Old Sovereign Publishing, which is just a little treat to myself for this. But the depiction of him reading them is him attending usually like the 9 lessons on carols, or just the King's Carol service with members of various societies, so Chit Chat Society maybe in Cambridge, then retiring to his chamber afterwards, drawing people in, giving them a brandy or hot spiced beer, as he calls, sitting them by the fireplace, and then disappearing to go get his notes, and then coming back and then holding forth from them. And I think,
God, it must have been quite an experience.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So before we really start delving into the stories, one thing I'd love to ask is just, do you believe in ghosts? Right. Is if I'm because actually this is something that I find quite a lot, actually, that even though we live in an age where like rationalism and materials seem to be sovereign, you meet a lot of people, right? That there seems to be this enduring fascination with ghosts, with the supernatural, and I find it remarkable that even people that I know who like a lot like the protagonists of the story, right? Very anti-superstition, right? They'll say, but there was that one time, right? And this is what I think M.R. James does so well, is that through his style of realism, he manages to basically get you to entertain the idea that such a thing could be possible. It's really wonderful the way that he does it.
Oh, I love how you frame that, and I'd love to pick up on that. But no one actually asked me that question before. I think I'm very much a product of modernity, and
right.
It's hard to believe in something as direct as that. And yet, do I? I had a holiday once in Scotland, and I chose a wonderful remote spot. In the woods with a cabin. The idea was you'd see red squirrels and you'd see deer in the morning, and that was lovely. But the downside was it was so old that you had to go to an outhouse far down a path. And you go down there in the dark of night, and my goodness, did I regret those Friday the 13th viewings, because I was seeing spectres. And you can tell yourself very rationally, there is no one up here. But
yeah,
you tell yourself rationally, but your brain is doing lots of other stuff as well.
And I think that exact pattern is something that's like he really seems to understand why people believe or why they feel they have these experiences. You know, there's so much in the subconscious that just trapped away, and it seems to always just be waiting for the right convergence of factors to basically unlock that subconsciousness and reveal some sort of like transcendental horror just waiting on the other side in places where the regions of their mind wouldn't normally be able to unlock.
Yeah, I think we can poo-poo it, but it's very interesting to note why it's so powerful to us and explore it, as you said. Through whatever
I mean, I as a kid, you know, not so much now, but as a kid, I always, you ever have that thing or know someone where, as a kid, you're in bed and you've got your leg out the end of the bed and you feel the need to like pull your leg in because otherwise some wraith is going to come in the night and like grab your leg and take you out the bed. You know, all those little things as you grow up. And yeah, I had that definitely. And there's probably been one or two times where you thought you saw something. But no, I do remain an arch skeptic. But that doesn't stop me from enjoying these and really appreciating what he tried to do. And I think another thing as well is that even though for those who are entirely unfamiliar, despite the fact that it's called Ghost Stories of an Antiquary, not every monster / supernatural horror within the stories is actually a ghost.
No.
That he has a really nice diversity of like, you know, creature and their origins, and you know, it's wonderful to see because he was also deeply fascinated by history, wasn't he, James? And so you see that the folklore from all these different European countries and village superstitions come in.
Yes, it's stuff he was looking up and researching, and he was able to thread it into the story in a slightly different light. And you know, it comes at a very interesting time where he's sort of really warning against a sort of materialism and discarding of superstition. The most obvious case is A Warning to the Curious, which is not in this collection that we're talking about today, and has a lovely adaptation. But Whistle and I'll Come to You, My Lad, is in that territory as well. Sort of the ultra-skeptical person who nevertheless dabbles in something they shouldn't have, and although there's a lot going on with that story. But you talked about a sort of way that James lulls you into a sense of security and gets you on board with the tale. I thought that was maybe a really useful jumping off point for these stories.
Oh yes, yeah, definitely. Well, it just seems to be the fact that other than one or two stories where it might take place at a manor in Sweden or a hotel in Denmark, most of the stories, I like the way that he stages them in locations that many ordinary people could actually go themselves, right? Because it makes them more... I've got a quote here from him where he just says, part of the idea behind the stories is just that you read them and you think, if I'm not very careful, something of this kind could happen to me. And so you set them at a little English seaside town because, you know, especially in the Victorian era, you know, there was no Ryanair. People weren't going abroad, of course. If they went on holiday, they'd go to a seaside and an English seaside town. And so it's very accessible, and it's great how he brings these locations into it to create, this place that should be safe, that you just explore every day, and gives them this sinister twist.
Yeah, I'm very minded of Lovecraft and Stoker and Chambers to an extent. Would you do a similar thing of to to make it more likely you could believe it, the place has to be familiar but not exactly familiar. It's got to be a little distant. Stoker will put his events on the edge of the world, where you think, well, I don't know exactly how it is out there. Maybe it does work like that over there. I'm going outside of my normal bounds here. So there's a bit of a risk, and James does this temporally as well. I think he has, if you can forgive a slight quotation I've got from...
I encourage them.
No, I can't see it here, so I'll quote it from memory as best I can.
Sure.
So in a distance to the slight physical distance from where you would normally be, so moving you from your college to that seaside town, to that slightly remote area. He also wants to give you a minor temporal distance, but vague. He says a little vague distance helps. He contrasts himself with a detective story where you want to be as up-to-date as possible and see how the technology could be deployed. Whereas he wants a little vague distance. So he says some 30 years previously or just before the war. So you're vaguely there, but you can't pin it down. I think it's sort of almost warding you off trying to be a detective, but giving you enough points of verisimilitude by quoting things that are actually there to sort of get buy-in from you.
Yes.
It's very clever like that.
It is. Well, so shall we talk a little bit about the first story?
Please.
So we've got the first story, which was Canon Albrecht's scrapbook, right? And this takes place, again, reasonably isolated little town in the south of France, I believe it was. And you have this, the main character of Denniston, great name. And he is an Englishman. He's, as many of the characters as say, share in mind, he's a rationalist, he's an educated man, and he's going about looking for old books.
Yes. Old and rare religious texts. So
Yes.
this is borderline James himself. The Cambridge academic heading on a research mission for a medieval religious apocrypha. So it is his life.
I like, again, so much of the charm in these stories, and charm is exactly the right word, I think, is that it's the little details, right? He has such little details. Like, I think in more than one story, but in this one in particular, he points out the fact that he's so enthusiastic about collecting these books that he's gone ahead, and two of his friends are going to join him the next day. And so just that, it's not a necessary bit of information, but it just gives you this idea of, okay, well, what life-changing experience is going to happen to this poor man before his friends arrive the next day? And it sets him in isolation, but with this feeling that companionship, friendship is just on the horizon to come save him.
Yes, he's isolated himself. So you can detect a period of brief vulnerability where he doesn't have his support, but also it's got that, forgive me for saying verisimilitude again, and this is a really good, I feel I'm being a bit crude and modern by saying technique, because when he's quite scornful of attempts to apply that formality to his writing, but I'll use technique. He brings in these just very nice casual details, making everything sound so conversational, and it really helps the picture of remembering that when people were hearing these, they were hearing them orated. They were just being told by a fireplace, so it should have that conversational style. It really suits how it was originally told.
Yes.
And just sort of helps lower the defense mechanisms. You're not thinking, oh, I don't believe all this supernatural guff. You're just hearing about a chap going on an expedition, and he's keeping it extremely casual, just like any friend would describe their work to you.
Yes. And he ends up meeting one of the locals, and the local takes him back to his house, and he has a daughter there as well. And it's a fantastic thing. One of the other things, just to say as well, is that because these are short stories, obviously, it makes it all the more impressive how quickly James is able to assemble these incredible atmospheres, right? Like all of a sudden, like this world becomes so real within a matter of 2 pages. You know, just within a few paragraphs, he's set everything you need to know, and he does this consistently through every one of the stories. It's for my part, someone who likes to write lengthily. You know, it's remarkable. It's aspirational to see someone be able to do that so quickly.
Oh, absolutely. And I think partially because he set himself that limit of I've got to be able to tell this story to a group of people who don't want
before the brandy gets
Yeah,
a little
exactly.
too deep. Yeah,
Yeah, it's a remarkable restraint and helps storytelling. As you're saying, he's recounting what he's seeing in the church. He's making notes there, drawn from a real life place he visited. And then he'll give you something like, I heard a laughing up in the belfry, and you're sort of, okay, hang on. And then he just moves on from it. And these little details are planted to slightly unsettle you.
And by the time he gets to the house, there's this moment where the Frenchman you can tell he's wavering on whether or not to actually let Denniston in.
Yes.
Right, there's this whole uncertainty, and it obviously creates this this beautiful moment where you know that this man knows far more than Denniston knows. But Denniston is so tunnel visioned about the fact that he's here on a mission and he's come to collect some old books. And so he goes in there and he finds this scrapbook from Canon Albrecht. And this is probably also a relevant moment just to mention as well that there are a few illustrations in with this work. And he had them drawn by a friend of his. Was it James
McBride?
McBride, yes, James McBride. And James actually passed away very sadly, quite a young age, about 30. And therefore, rather than, and the publishers had said to him, well, we could get someone else. He says, no, I just want James's work and, you know, stand out to a testament to it. And this is one of the stories that James McBride was able to draw a sketch for. And it is sinister. It is very, very good. It's also the description that goes with it. When I read this, it was wonderful. I do apologise, by the way, ladies and gentlemen. I'm a little under the weather today, as you might tell. But it says, I entirely despair of conveying by any words the impression which this figure makes upon anyone who looks at it. I recollect once showing the photograph of the drawing to a lecturer on morphology, a person of, I was going to say, abnormally sane and unimaginative habits of mind. He absolutely refused to be alone for the rest of that evening. And he told me afterwards that for many nights he had not dared to put out his light before going to sleep. However, the main traits of the figure I can at least indicate. So he sees this ghoul, this demonic figure, towards the end of the scrapbook, and he says, at first you saw only a mass of coarse, matted black hair. Presently it was seen that this covered a body of fearful thinness, almost a skeleton, but with the muscles standing out like wires. The hands were of a dusky pallor, covered like the body with long, coarse hairs and hideously taloned. The eyes, touched in with a burning yellow, had intensely black pupils, and were fixed upon the throned king with a look of beast-like hate. I mean, it's just wonderful writing.
Yeah.
Really wonderful writing. And he... and it's all with reference to the fact that you have King Solomon of the Old Testament, and he has his scepter and he's pointing at these demons. And I believe Solomon seems to be a figure with aspects of the occult about him, because you have the Testament of Solomon where he has this magic ring and he's basically able to harness the power of these demons to help him build a temple. And then you have the grimoire, don't you, of the Key of Solomon.
Yes.
So, yeah.
You read of Solomon extensively in Kings and Chronicles, sort of both cover him. And he's gifted with this amazing wisdom and super relevant for James here in our sort of don't get too curious, or in fact, a warning to the curious, we might call it. Solomon uses his wisdom to create great prosperity for his kingdom, and then gets a whole load of wives. And with the wives come the trouble. They worship foreign gods, and he doesn't make them renounce their religions and worship the Jewish God, but instead builds temples to their gods as well, and sort of gets a little foot in the occult that way.
Right.
And that's a bit of his downfall.
And so the other thing as well is that it is speculative, of course, and that's what so much of what makes these stories fantastic, is that because James never outright explains things to you, but gives you enough information for you to piece them together for yourself. It's wonderful because it makes your mind put it together yourself in a way that you would deem to be plausible, so that you, as an individual reader, can find a way to make it work for you and believe and immerse yourself in the story he's telling.
Yes, he's made it real enough that when he adds these little uncertainties and these little details, you will complete the picture as you see it. Of course, he's also granting great license to illustrators to have fun and be creative. And some of the illustrations that accompany these are absolutely wonderful. They're a treat. He's also writing in a time where you have to exercise a certain amount of restraint. And within that, he manages to stay within the bounds of good taste and still send a chill up your spine. So it's very well done indeed.
Yes. And so presumably this demon in the picture is, of course, one of those demons from the legend that you're talking about. And so therefore it brings together this this wonderful feeling that actually, no, all these things from ancient times that you now treat as superstition, right? Just because we've gone through these centuries and we've undergone the scientific revolution and, of course, things are becoming more materialist, doesn't mean all those ancient truths have just disappeared from the world, right? They're as real back then as they are today. You're just out of time and you can't understand what that lost knowledge, right, that they had.
Absolutely. And if you step off that little path, it is not too hard to find it.
Yes.
You know, areas where it's still very much real and very much a threat is there.
And this is what Denniston does. So he takes this tome, and it's wonderful as well because he's haggling with the Frenchman for this, but he's saying, "Look, you've got to let me buy it." And it's really, really funny because it's got many other things in it as well besides this image that are of great, antiquary and are obviously of academic interest. And Denniston's saying, "Oh, no, it's worth much more than this. Let me give you more for it." And you can tell the Frenchman's like, "No, I just take it. I don't want this book in the house, actually."
Yeah. Take it. I feel bad about it. 250 francs is fine.
Yes.
And then, his daughter even gives the chap a crucifix. And then, in the interesting, the chap is almost sort of, well, it's not my sort of thing, but okay, I'll take it. It's only the polite thing to do. And does he really believe that, or is he starting to get disquieted and think, well, actually, I'd like this.
Yeah. Well, turns out to have been the right decision. So he goes back to his hotel for the evening, and he opens the scrapbook because obviously he's just itching to go through it all, and it's fantastic. The atmosphere is so well made, and he puts a crucifix either in the drawer on the bedside table, so it's not on his person. And then as he starts going through the scrapbook, he sees a hand like the one in the picture from the demon at his side, and then he obviously turns and it's just there. And my God, it was terrifying. It is really... in fact, I think of all of them, I think this was actually the scariest. From my point of view. I mean, obviously, some of them are different, but...
No, I can see a strong case for that one. I personally put my money on the mezzotint, which we'll get to. But yes, it's sort of the big scene, the crescendo, as James refers to them, it comes to you very quickly, but all the steps have been laid on the way. So it's really masterful that when he sort of pulls the trigger on it, as it were, you're hit very suddenly.
I have that quote here about what you were saying about the crescendo. So I might just read it now, where he just says, "The two ingredients most valuable in the concocting of a ghost story are, to me, the atmosphere and the nicely managed crescendo. Let us then be introduced to the actors in a placid way. Let us see them going about their ordinary business, undisturbed by forebodings, pleased with their surroundings, and into this calm environment let the ominous thing put out its head, unobtrusively at first, and then more insistently until it holds the stage." And that's exactly what he does. And fortunately for Denniston, he actually survives this encounter and manages to meet his friends the next morning.
Yeah.
But not every protagonist in these stories is so lucky, right? Sometimes they survive, sometimes they don't.
Yes, there's a fair few occasions you get, I think, is it... Oh, forgive me here, my brain is failing me. Count Magnus is the one I'm thinking of, where you're just told, I've come across these papers from the protagonist of the story, and I'll explain how I got them later. Right. But even just reading that, you think, well, that's not going to end well.
But it's great because it keeps you guessing. You don't start reading the story and thinking, oh, he's going to make it out because they all make it out.
Yes.
It manages to keep things mixed up in a way that all adds to the suspense of the tale. He never undermines his own story by making the formula ironclad.
No, and I'm a fan of H.P. Lovecraft, but James, I've got to say, does manage to dodge that sort of trick that became a trope of Lovecraft, the person writing in the journal, basically, and he has stabbed me yet again. Oh, why are you writing this? Why are you sat journaling now and not trying to escape?
Yes.
Which sometimes Lovecraft sort of stretches the bounds of credulity in trying to set up his world. James avoids that rather well, I've got to say.
And that's another important point that you mentioned as well, the fact that invariably the first-hand narration, the narrator's voice is very clear and very present at all times through the storytelling. You're constantly reminded that this story I'm telling you is not a complete story. It's not a third-person omniscient narration. I have managed to come into this information either through a witness, through someone who survived, or through, as you say, scraps of paper from some poor chap who didn't make it. And so you're only dealing with whatever information the actual narrator knows.
Absolutely. Forgive me, I'm rudely flicking through because you just reminded me. I have found it. Just in terms of the voice of the narrator, I loved this when he came to it. It's from A Whistle and I'll Come to You, My Lad. Part of that authorial voice, part of remembering that these were told as tales by a fireside, but they're also very funny. "I suppose you'll be getting away pretty soon now. Full term is over, Professor," said a person not in the story to the Professor of Ontography, soon after they had sat down next to each other at the feast. It's a little person not in the story. It feels almost parodic, and there's a reference later to someone who doesn't get a name because he... Oh, yes. It was, as you might suppose, a person of antiquarian pursuits who said this, but since he merely appears in this prologue, there is no need to give his entitlements. I loved that when I read it.
He's not that relevant, but, he's got a few lines and, yeah.
You relax because he's just setting the scene, but there's almost sort of a winking acknowledgement of the form he's telling his story in, which I really liked.
Yeah, very characterful. So let's talk about the second story, talk about Lost Hearts. Now, I got very excited, immediately excited when I started reading this story, because it was set in Lincolnshire, my county. So it's nice to have some representation in there. So this one was very different, of course, and one of the few stories from this collection where the protagonist is not like some rational, educated professor or antiquarian. It's a small boy, this young lad called Stephen, and it's a nice little twist because actually, the educated man, the professor, is the antagonist of the story. Little does Stephen realise it at the time.
Yeah, it's nice. Like this and the ash tree definitely stretch the bounds of the format and show a bit of variety. They were very popular in the adaptations because they gave producers license to splash a bit of claret around. The ash tree especially lent itself to sort of 80s horror style.
Sure.
But nevertheless, we've still got this theme of a warning about being too inquisitive, looking where you shouldn't look, delving into forbidden knowledge, that consistent frame, but also still set with lots of charm, lots of nice outside area. Oh, it's lovely.
Yeah, it ends up at Aswarby Hall in Lincolnshire, and so you've got this young lad Stephen who has just been orphaned, and he's going to stay with his elder cousin, Mr. Abney. And what I like so much about the way that this story is introduced is that it would have been very, very easy to have had Stephen turn up at this hall, and immediately there'd have been some sort of tension, or you realise he's not going to be happy. If it was like a Dickensian novel, right, like Oliver Twist, you immediately throw Oliver into hardship. You immediately throw him into the suffering, and obviously he gets that happy ending. Whereas this does the opposite, because obviously, as you say, it's about creating a sense of peace at the beginning. And so actually Mr. Abney is very, very cordial, is very, very welcoming. But even that welcoming nature is kind of unsettling. Because you're like, well, this is all too nice. This has worked out too well for the young lad. Sure, his parents have died, but now he's at this grand hall in Lincolnshire, and he's got servants waiting on him, and his cousin seems a very, very good man. He's a professor of classics. So yeah, all the clues are there.
Yeah, it's well woven. Again, not overly spelled out, basically, to lull you in, and then some lovely imagery in this one. I like those long fingernails. I gather that occurs a lot more in his stories, but I've got a lot of his stories I've not read yet. But it seems to be a bit of imagery that he's really fixated on, that these long scratching nails that can be very vivid.
Yeah, definitely. He so Stephen spends quite a bit of time there. And again, in sharp contrast to the first story, which just takes place in space of basically 24 hours, this one takes place over quite a long period of time. And as Stephen settles in there, he hears that he's not the first child to have been at this hall before. There was once a young girl, and she disappeared one day, and then later there was a young boy, and he also disappeared. And I believe, I can't remember which way around it was, but one of them was some sort of young gypsy. And I think the other was like an Eastern European immigrant, something like that. And so these are children that are, from the outside of society, obviously, and therefore no meaningful questions were really raised when they disappeared. Which is interesting. And so therefore, but Stephen's not like that. Stephen is flesh and blood of the cousin. So surely nothing bad's going to happen to him, right?
I wonder if you read that and you think, well, you are an orphan. And I was curious if James was thinking of some real life incidents in there. Because there are quite a few cases where basically vulnerable children were just shipped out on schemes to send work, say, to farms, and there was not really much attention paid to where they went. And I wondered if James had maybe heard some stories like that sort of inspired him. But the things I'm thinking of are sort of more American than anything else. So I wasn't sure. I'm not sure that I've got the greatest justification for my suspicions, but I did wonder what inspired him in this, because it is fairly outside of his usual way of telling the story and his usual focus.
And there's a very, very spooky moment as well where young Stephen has this dream that he's walking down the hall, and then he looks through. I can't remember if it was a keyhole or whether or not, there was some sort of gap in the door, some breaking in the door. And he peers through, and he sees this bathtub.
Yes.
Right, and there's obviously some sort of skeletal corpse in the bathtub, and obviously it's of such horror that Stephen wakes up, and he's not in his bed. He is looking through that door, or that door is in front of him.
Yeah.
I mean, that's really, really eerie.
It's great. The sort of sleepwalking thing, classic Victorian storytelling device. That scene is done wonderfully in the TV adaptation. They stretched it to I don't know. I felt they had license to to basically do some nasty effects. So in the BBC version, there's a quite impressive chest cavity in the poor boy. So they really enjoyed the chance to make that vivid and horrific. But,
yes. Oh dear.
Yeah, and James is writing Lost Hearts before Freud's The Uncanny. That comes out in 1919. But the ideas are bouncing around for Freud to sort of describe this kind of scene where you play with the real and the familiar and say that question of, did I see it? Did I dream it? Well, it was a dream, but here I am right here, so how can I be sure? Lots of these aspects of the uncanny, of something relatively normal just recurring and recurring until it starts to become weird. And you think, why is this happening? So, yeah, that thing of, well, was it just a dream? I can say it's just a dream and write it off, but it's different enough that you're left doubting, Stephen is left doubting. It's excellent technique.
It is. And then you approach this moment where he's having a conversation with Abney, and Abney says to him, I've got some work to do tonight, but join me in my study at 11 o'clock. I'll be downstairs. And Stephen's very excited about this. I mean, what young boy doesn't like to stay up late, right? And it's a bit of adventure. It's something a bit different. But then before all of that, again, it's so well put together. Where Stephen's at his window and he's not sleeping. He's just going to read and kill the time before he goes down there, and he sees through his window these two like phantoms on the horizon.
Yeah.
And then they come closer and closer, and then they run past his window around the grounds of the house. And again, well, it's dark out there. There's no... you can only see that the village is far over, right? So who's coming out this late at night? It makes you ask all these questions. And then, of course, he goes downstairs, opens the study at 11, and Abney's dead in his chair, and the window's open.
Yep. It's better told in the story than the adaptation, I would say, because it comes off... In the TV adaptation, he's rescued, whereas this just makes you wonder, if he had gone there early, what would he have seen? I think it's much more eerie because you don't see. And this theme of the windows open, and I've heard something and I didn't quite glimpse it, but I saw something moving around. We see that recur again and again, I think because it's powerful. The person following Parkinson, forgive me.
Oh, yes, Parkins.
Is it Parkins?
Yes.
There we go. Parkins in A Whistle and I'll Come to You, My Lad, or the things that aren't squirrels or hares in the ash tree.
Right.
And you don't see them. These little yeah, James loves to give you that image of they're glimpsed, they're on the outside, and there's, you know, a window open, some kind of vulnerability.
And so there seems to be this idea that what Abney was doing was dealing in some ancient occult practices.
Yes,
astrological
sort of heresies, and telling him
Is
that
it something
now
related
is the
to
time.
Mithras, if I'm remembering? The cult of Mithras.
I do not recall, I apologise, but it was very linked to that, to astronomy. Like, that's why the time has to be absolutely now. The stars have literally aligned.
Oh yes, because he mentions as well, doesn't he, that it's the equinox. Yes, and yeah, it's really eerie. It's got these dark pagan undertones to it, you know, not dissimilar to the Wicker Man.
No, it's I mean, it's fascinating to me because I really like an odd little subgenre of specifically English horror called folk horror, and there's always an aspect consistently in them of a character. Your protagonist is usually someone modern from the city, educated, and they go somewhere out into the sticks, and they see the old ways being practiced, and like this encounter with the old, the forbidden, the forgotten, the pagan, a sort of, there's a horror of, oh gosh, people are still doing this, and sort of subtextually there's this fear of, say, an educated, civilized class of how fragile is my worldview, my lifestyle, my belief system. Is this going to crumble and go back to this barbarism because we haven't civilized them out here? They're still going strong. So it's this sort of educated, modern insecurity that thrives in folk horror. And I think James has got this really early form of it, which is quite nice. But yeah, it definitely feeds things like The Wicker Man, Blood on Satan's Claw, Hammer's Own The Witch from 66, I think. But I'm possibly veering off into esoterica.
No, that's
apologies.
Great, no. We love a bit of esotericism over here. But what's more as well, this murder of Abney turns out to be a blessing because it saved Stephen's life. And you know this because Abney was writing at the time when he was murdered. He was writing about the fact that he'd basically, well, he hadn't intended it to be read, but it works as a confession for what he was doing, and the fact that he did murder those two previous children and took their hearts, hence the title, of course, and had intending to fully do the same to Stephen that very night when Stephen was to come down to his study. And he believed that in absorbing the power, the ancient power of these hearts, he would gain immortality. Yes. A good twist, I think, on the rationalist character. You know, you see a man there who, by any stretch, well, he lectures classics at Cambridge, you know, he's a very sensible chap. But actually, yeah, there's these dark undertones and this practice of the forbidden and the occult behind it all.
Yeah, and not the only character to try it. Sort of echoes of Count Magnus, although Magnus is a few centuries dead, but is also looking for that immortality.
Yes.
Via very diabolical means.
Yes, which we'll certainly get to. But I believe the next story is, of course, the Mezzotint.
Yes.
And this is this your favourite?
It is.
Okay,
yes.
Wonderful. Why is this one your favourite?
I felt it was incredibly cinematic, but it was also there's a lot of metatextual stuff in there about how you try and quantify and evidence these supernatural happenings. You know, this is someone writing about their supernatural encounter in a way of trying to create evidence for it. It's like, how do you try and prove this happens?
Right. Yeah. Yes.
Which is sort of, people in the story are doing that, and in the midst of a collection, say, usually it's evidenced by just someone sent you letters, and that's all you've got to go on. So I found that quite interesting. But to lay the story out for people, an Antiquary at Cambridge, and this is who makes direct reference to Denniston from Canon Albrecht's
Oh
scrapbook.
yes, it's this story, isn't it? Yeah.
I love this actually. I don't know how novel it was, but for me, I was very surprised to see this sort of reference to a previous character, alongside numerous references to contemporary literature. I thought,
small bit of world building.
Yeah, exactly.
Just that all of this is happening within our world, and these are all stories from real people that we've heard about.
Yeah.
And, one or two of them might have known each other, and many will be from centuries prior, but it's all real. It's all...
Yeah. These are people who've read the latest Thomas Hardy novel that's just come out, or so Tess of the D'Urbervilles is the one they reference, which I loved.
Oh, yes.
There's also a lovely bit of sly university humour, kind of Oxbridge humour there, where I think many universities do it, but if they've got a rival university, they will sort of obliquely mention it, but claim they forget the name. Like, I was studying at some other institution.
Hull, no doubt. Hull University.
And that, yes, James even writes a very specific reference to a Cambridge group, and I'm going to mangle the name, but it's SPR, the Society for either Psychical Research or Phantasmagorical Research, but I think it's psychical, and forgive me for not remembering, but he has a parody of that society who he says he wants to keep his findings away from. So there was a real group in Cambridge, but he didn't think much of them. So they're taking his stories far too seriously.
Yeah. So I actually, being totally a man trapped in the modern world, I actually had to Google what a mezzotint was. I wasn't originally sure.
Oh, I didn't have a clue either. Don't be ashamed in the least.
So it's essentially it's a drawing, isn't it? That's put on a specific type of paper.
Yeah, it's an engraving with metals, I believe.
Yes.
And maybe we can have some imagery up so people can see one. Editors, let me offload that to you, I'm afraid. But it would be helpful to view it. So our Antiquary is looking for interesting pieces and is sent a little catalogue of things that might be of interest, including an obscure reference to a mezzotint that might be of interest to him in particular, and he's thinking, oh, well, I'll take this up. And I also like this little insight into his world, pre-internet.
Yes.
You just sent a little catalogue with a vague description, and like, we can send a servant with them to you, and then if you want them, then we'll bill you. I like these little details of the old world and how it was done.
Yes.
It's, again, charming.
It is.
I'm rationing how many times I say charming and cosy in this conversation.
Well, they're very applicable words.
Yeah.
So you end up with... that's another part at the very beginning, actually, where it says about, perhaps 2 guineas and 2 shillings. Says, I think that's a bit much. Like, it's not anything spectacular. In fact, there's nothing there. This is just a mezzotint of the side of a house. And the green, outside of it, but I'm sure that the moonlight's quite well done, I suppose. But there's nothing really of note to it. Certainly nothing to justify 2 guineas for it.
Yeah, it's a nice little conceit. Think of it like the inverse of Canon Albrecht's scrapbook, where this thing is sold too cheap and it becomes suspicious, and the mezzotint is very unremarkable. So why has it got this remarkable price on it? Has my regular dealer sort of stiffed me on this one?
Yes.
And then someone just notices a little detail, and I love this conceit. This sort of, for any fans of what's a good example of it? The Weeping Angels in Doctor Who. That thing of the threat is entirely still when you look at it, but if you look away, it moves. So you become paranoid about looking away. Well, this has been done many times with paintings changing. And the mezzotint here uses that device. Someone notices a little detail, a little figure perhaps in the distance, and then each time they return to this drawing, it's changed. The figure is moving closer and closer to the house, so instantly your brain is thinking, I know where this is going. I mean, he's going to get into the house. What's going to happen then? So it's a wonderful hook. You want to see how it plays out, and our man sort of thoroughly rejects the thoroughly rejects the paranormal. If you're doing your M.R. James drinking game, that's your cue. So he has people write down their statement of witness. And as I sort of hinted at, this is the kind of thing you think would just maybe turn up in a later M.R. James story. My goodness, I came across these statements of witness about this obscure mezzotint. But we're seeing the first-hand account of it.
Yes. Yeah, it's very good as well because it's the third story. And so by this point, you see this creature getting into a house and you're like, oh no, here we go again. You know, like the last one just ended with a murder through an open window. And so it's wonderful. You know, you can tell some thought has also gone into the ordering of the stories within the collection as well. So goes on to say the last time they looked at the mezzotint, the window was open.
Yes.
And now they've come back and looked at it again, and it says the window that had been open was shut, and the figure was once more on the lawn, but not this time crawling cautiously on hands and knees. Now it was erect and stepping swiftly with long strides towards the front of the picture. The moon was behind it, and the black drapery hung down over its face, so that only hints of that could be seen. And what was sensible made the spectators profoundly thankful that they could see no more than the white, dome-like forehead and the few straggling hairs. The head was bent down, and the arms were tightly clasped over an object which could be dimly seen and identified as a child. Whether dead or living, it was not possible to say.
Yeah.
Okay. You know, so that's...
It's pretty grim. You had just had these little snapshots of it, and you're wondering, like, the world's most terrifying zoetrope. You're just waiting. Oh my gosh, what is going to happen? And then for him to come out with a child. We've got to remember, like, this isn't... I found it interesting that they say impossible to know if it was dead or alive. Well, it's like, this is an engraving. It's nominally static.
Yeah.
But so there's sort of two layers to it. There's like literally we don't know whether it was, but literally we can't see because it's just an engraving. But yeah, I love that. Now, how did you find the conceit of this story, the setup and the sort of vehicle for the scares?
One thing that I really liked about this story was I don't think that subplot is quite the right word, but the fact that they're trying to piece together where this house actually is.
Oh yes.
Right, they're trying to, because they've got, it says Ingley or something at the end, and then just sex, and they've obviously, they're missing words. So is it Essex or is it Sussex? And you know, my God, there must be quite a few houses, manor houses that have Ingley towards the end. So we're trying to figure out where this house is as well. Obviously, it's not their own. But they mean to find it. And then I think they piece it together towards the end that it's a house in Sussex, and that there was some old story, again, this folk story from the ancient, from, I can't remember when it was even, the century or so before, where there was this man called, was it Gordy?
That sounds about right.
Yeah, this man called Gordy. And there was a poacher, and he was murdered, and so the mezzotint has this kind of something again, which is a common theme, that's some sort of like wraith of vengeance. You know, that these spirits, these demons, these ghosts are like fueled. That the reason that they exist is because their souls are restless, and their souls can't be laid to peace because some injustice was done.
There's something of their character has, in capturing them so accurately, something of their very spirit is in there. And I think it's particularly relevant in this story because it's a tale of a poacher who was previously of a great family and who lost that status. And basically it's like his part in history has been wiped off. And so he seeks to reinscribe himself into history, to make his mark again. There's a bit of I don't know how well this would communicate. So I'm often wary of older stories if they work with a modern reader. But I wondered how you found. If you were being cruel, you would say they basically find a professor of exposition to basically tell you everything that really went on there. And I wondered how you felt about that, if that was maybe revealing a bit too much for the story, or if it worked for you.
I think that with the mezzotint, it needs a bit of an explanation, right? Because though the concept of it is absolutely wonderful, the idea that every time they keep moving back to this, and again, as you say, it doesn't move when they're looking at it. It only ever moves. There's one part of the story, isn't there, where the main character and two of his companions take turns for about 2 hours just sitting looking at this mezzotint, waiting for it to move. And then, lo and behold, it doesn't move. And I think one of them even says, I get the feeling it'll only move at night as well. And so I do think that it actually treads a nice balance, because, yes, you need the backstory of Gaudi in order to understand something about this and what's happening in the image. But at the same time, you don't really know who made the mezzotint. You don't know how it does what it does.
Yes.
And so it still leaves that perfect air of mystery. And even more so because actually, on this one occasion, the main characters in the contemporary time, are perfectly safe. Actually, they're perfectly safe. They all survive, and the thing was never coming for them. But it does obviously leave them in a position where this experience is never going to leave them. Right? They are going to remember this for the rest of their days.
It's going to be disquieting them, and you just think they're going about the rest of their lives, and they think, they know they've seen something profoundly uncanny and weird, in the weird fiction sense of the word.
Yes.
It's
anything more you'd just like to say about the mezzotint before we move on to the next one?
There's a book of edited essays on psychoanalytics and horror called Freud's Worst Nightmare by Stephen Schneider, which has an essay by a chap called Crane, I think, called "'Twas a Dark and Stormy Night," and it's about the intersection of irony and horror. And I really thought of that when I was reading this, sort of way that, in a way that normally you would think, typically you would think the use of irony would sort of break your investment in a story and tell you like not to take it seriously, and sort of thereby ruin the effect of horror. Normally that's what you think would happen. Horror genre seems to do very well with irony. It seems to work as a way of letting you blow off steam, and I guess lowering the bar to investment, in that you sort of go in thinking there are these touches of humour that let you relax your skeptical guard, so you just enjoy the story.
Yes.
And with your guard down, it can deliver the scares. And I thought there were several moments, like I'd say this is probably the funniest story for me.
Yes.
There's some competition, but I think this is the funniest. The more direct, humorous references to Oxford, or that imagery you picked up of the chaps just staring at the painting for a few hours, I found quite obliquely funny. If you did a filmed version of that, I think you could draw a lot of humour out of that scene, of them just sort of hurriedly shutting it and draw in frustration. So I think this story would serve as a good focal point for exploring that intersection between irony and horror. I can't really recommend the book for most people. It's very, very dry academia, but it had some interesting points in it.
Yes, the mezzotint was definitely worth its 2 guineas in the end. Definitely. All right, the ash tree. Now, this was actually my favourite. I really, really liked the ash tree. I liked the generational aspect to it. I like the fact that this is a curse that lingers over several generations of the family. I felt like it was very, very well paced. I thought the characters, it was really nice as well. That because this is a more period story, set in the late 1600s, early 1700s, all about basically the witch trials and witches. It has a very unique presence amongst the collection. And even though the main character of Sir Matthew and then Sir Richard are obviously educated men, being lords, they're not rationalists.
No.
They're not rationalists because they're from before that time period. And so, yeah, I thought it was a very unique story. And yeah, there's something terrifying about a tree being the cause of all of this. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm interested that this is your favorite. It's definitely a strong one. Very very cinematic again, and as I mentioned, that when the BBC got a chance to do this one, you know they're excited because there's an obvious, wonderful visual effect that they get to do. But in the written version itself, yes, there's a lot to it. There's a different focus, as you say. The witch trials are in there. I also like that it opened with that characteristic relaxed style where James is just sort of noticing something that he's seen in his travel, where you feel he's almost complaining about architecture, being a bit snooty about people using the Italian style.
Yes.
Which is
rightfully so.
Last thing you expect in a ghost story is like, what? No, chains and clanking and phantasmagorical chills. No, let me tell you why Italian architecture is poncy, and we need to return.
He has these strong moments, doesn't he, where he'll just the narrator will have an opinion about something.
Yes,
and you can tell it's just James using it as an excuse to have a bit of a dig. Whether, as you say, it's about Italian architecture or certain questions of faith, like Christian theology, because I believe he was a Protestant, but obviously he was deeply fascinated by the old Catholicism, that old theology that England buried beneath the Reformation.
Yes, he's got several characters who you're meant to be slightly questionable about, who go on brief anti-Catholic, I wouldn't say a full tirade, but they have a few digs at Catholicism. And I just got the feeling that maybe James was a little warmer to it than those characters would suggest.
Yes, I think so. Well, as certainly is demonstrated in "Oh Whistle and I'll Come to You, My Lad," with the Templar flute.
Yes.
It's like, well, that's obviously something from Catholic England, not pre-Reformation. And so, yeah, we'll address all of that to come. So the witches, you have this this woman in the witch trial, local village, and her name was, what was it, Mrs.
Motherlow?
Yeah, Mother Soul. Yeah, that was it.
Mother
yes.
Soul. Apologies, names do not stick in my head.
I blanked too. And basically, she has mounting evidence against her that she's a witch. How unfortunate. But what the narrator as well makes clear is the fact that this woman is not. She's not a peasant. She's very well off. She's actually was very respected about the village. She was someone with influence. In fact, many of the people from high up tried to intercede on their behalf to save her.
Yeah, it's not the usual story we get about witch burnings. It's a notable contrast, and the sense of sort of begrudging duty by is it Sir Richard, one of the Sir Richards?
Sir
or Sir
Matthew Fell is
Sir
the
Matthew
one
Fell
that,
is the first one. Yes,
brings the damning evidence against her. Yeah, that he followed her, went to her house one night, and he's seen her walking about very late at night.
It is curious, isn't it? Because it's these sights that may have been purely dreaming. He sees something skitter. Correct me if my memory is wrong. One of the big evidences he sees something that skitters away from the tree and may have been a hare.
Yes.
And then he goes directly to her house and knocks on the door, and she takes quite a while to answer, and you'd think, Well, maybe she was asleep, my dude. It was
Mm.
3 a.m.
Yeah.
You're estranged, she doesn't expect to receive it. Or was she trying to get a cover story?
Mm-hmm.
You do have that doubt hanging over it for the whole story, and well, until the very end, really.
Yes. When until Sir Matthew was totally vindicated about his doubts. I like that part as well, where it talks about Matthew going to a door and knocking on it late at night, and then they're eventually answering, and then it says something to the effect of, but Sir Matthew found that he didn't actually have sufficient reason to be like, he'd not even thought of an excuse for, wait, why am I saying that I'm here?
Yeah.
So he just presumably opens the door and he's like, yeah, okay, and he just goes away. Again, yeah, a little bit of humor in it. So then she is buried after her execution for witchcraft, and you have this ash tree on his lands, and it is really near to the west wing of the house, and there's a bedroom in there by the west wing, and eventually Matthew perishes in his bed. Some years later, decades go by. But one of the other things as well that I really thought was a fantastic touch to the story is that it's not just the effect that this curse, which had clearly been given, because it mentions the fact that this woman didn't resist, but she was just giving these daggers of intent, right? There was almost this isn't over look to her as she was dying.
What's that phrase she says just a couple of times? It's simple enough, like, you'll be visited.
Yeah, you'll be visited.
It's sort of, oh.
Yeah.
Again, chills up the spine.
Yeah, really sinister. And so Matthew dies in his bed, and then the story continues right through the generations. But sorry, that was it. One of the things I was going to say was I love the fact that it's not just that this curse has an effect on the person, right? It's not just that it affects Matthew for having her killed. It seems to affect the very land itself.
Yes.
Right? The land itself is cursed. The animals begin to act strangely on it. They're irritable. That it's a place where people don't want to go. The locals in the village start to, through their folklore and murmuring, start to believe and say that it's all related to this witch trial.
Yeah, that's a very strong motif throughout a lot of the later stories. It really draws on it, the idea of the landscape carrying this psychological burden. And I wouldn't be able to do it justice, but I've had some good conversations about sort of M.R. James and hauntology, and that feeling of walking through this landscape that bears this huge sort of psychological gravity, where you feel like the emptiness really disturbs you and makes you feel uneasy. You're aware of this fragility of sort of lost industry, lost civilizations, and an almost hollowed out place that is vulnerable. A warning to the curious is a really makes really powerful use of that. But that it's here in the ash tree too. As you say, it spreads out. The livestock isn't flourishing. It feels like a biblical curse, doesn't it? And I just love the feeling of this powerful idea of the house with the bedroom in it that no one goes near, that everyone just agrees to avoid, like this cold spot in the manor. Since
Sir Matthew died in that bed, and it describes, didn't it, as well, that he was like black. There was some really weird thing had just happened to him in the night, and it didn't even look like murder. It just looks like he's he's blackened and he's turned to a corpse.
Yeah, I mean, we get a wonderful description of that later. I mean, I can give that a read.
Oh, sure.
The details are just, the window is open, no one knows, and so no one goes there, and it's like the architecture becomes almost like a representation of that psychic scar that doesn't heal. Across the generations, that wound is there. You don't go near the room. We're just dodging that. Now, forgive me if I'm confusing this a little bit.
No,
I could be
please.
talking about the other Sir Matthew, but it was this wonderful description where M.R. James lets himself go a little bit into that macabre. He's sparing with it, mostly its atmosphere, but he gives you enough of the hint to unsettle you here. So this is a description of a Sir Matthew, I apologise for not remembering which, being discovered dead. There was not any the least trace of entrance having been forced to the chamber, but the casement stood open, as my poor friend would have always had it in the season. He had his evening drink of small ale in a silver vessel of about a pint measure, and tonight he had not drunk it out. This drink was examined by the physician from Bury, Mr. Hodgkins, who could not, however, as he afterwards declared upon his oath, before the coroner's quest, discover that any matter of a venomous kind was present in it. For, as was natural, in the great swelling and blackness of the corpse, there was talk made among the neighbours of poison. The body was very much disordered as it laid in the bed, being twisted after so extreme a sort as gave to probable conjecture that my worthy friend and patron had expired in great pain and agony. And what is as yet unexplained, and to myself the argument of some horrid and artful design in the perpetrators of this barbarous murder, was this, that the women which were entrusted with the laying out of the corpse and washing it, being both sad persons, and very well respected in their mournful profession, came to me in a great pain and distress, both of mind and body, saying what was indeed confirmed upon the first view, that they had no sooner touched the breast of the corpse with their naked hands than they were sensible of a more than ordinary violent smart and aching in their palms, which with their whole forearms in no long time swelled so immoderately, the pain still continuing that, as afterward proved, during many weeks they were forced to lay by the exercise of their calling, and yet no mark seen on the skin. It's vivid. You can, and the illustration in this has the poor chap clearly he'd been writhing in agony before expiring, and it's.
But that makes it even more as well. So he was writhing in agony, and yet no one heard what he was suffering through till they found his body the next day.
Yeah. You wonder, did he actually get a sound out? Was something else blocking the noise? And I love the image, just the idea of what's the explanation for these washerwomen touching him and then basically withdrawing and feeling this horrible effect. It makes you think of a curse, really.
Well, I mean, it's the ultimate, checkmate rationalists. It's just like, explain that one then. How did these women end up having, what you just described there? And so the generations go on, and this is such a wonderful part of it that eventually you meet Sir Richard, the grandson of Sir Matthew, still has the land, still owns the hall, has numerous renovations done to the house of varying tastes to our narrators' happiness. But one of the things as well is that within this, Sir Richard decides that he is going to move his bedroom to the west side. So no one has been in that room since Sir Matthew's death, some 40 years before. But now Sir Richard, for no other reason than, the sun comes up and, it wakes me up early. I want it on the other side of the house. Perfectly trivial reason. But the thing is as well that it does a really good job by choosing its dates, because by making it 40 years, yes, Sir Richard has obviously come along and taken over and is ignorant of what befell his grandfather and Mrs. Mothersole, but it's actually in living memory of some of the townsfolk. They remember that day, they remember that moment, they remember that execution. And they've lived in this area and felt the curse on this land for decades now. And so there's rumour and gossip throughout the village of all these things.
Yeah, there's sort of a Chesterton's fence here, in that you've got servants in the house who are risking. It depends of his. Not sure of his disposition, but you could see they're risking their employment by saying to their master, no, you stay out of the room. Come on. Like, no, we avoid this room and we've avoided this for 40 years. Let it be. Trust us on this one.
Yes.
Don't go rational.
But he decides that he will.
Yes.
And they have the air. That's the other thing as well. They open the door. It's obviously not been open for 40 years. You've got this horrible smell. The room's not been aired in 40 years since someone died in it. And so, again, just through the sense of smell, there's this foreboding of death and doom about it. And you end up in this position where there are actually a few other people who come to the house. And one of them is also, I believe, the grandson of the Reverend, who had buried the witch.
It's really charming, isn't it? I really like that sense of honouring the continuity that the grandsons want to carry on the friendship of the grandfathers. I thought that was really touching.
Yeah, I thought that was a really nice aspect to it as well. You're just maintaining those old family bonds with one another. And Richard, readily agrees to it. He seems he is very aristocratic, but he's also very gentlemanly. He's very, but he is obviously a man who cares greatly for the material look of his house, far more than he cares about any superstitions about witchcraft or magic, much to his detriment, because he ends up dead, just like his grandfather before him. And then the story is taken over by the guests who were at his premises at the time, who'd been visiting, numerous ladies and a lord and the Reverend, of course. And there's the tree, the ash tree.
Yes.
And now they understand that, well, the window was kept open and this curse is coming from the tree itself. Seem to have this a lot with his work, that there is always some sort of device, that by which something is channeled through, right? That a curse is channeled through, whether it's a mezzotint or a flute or an ash tree or another person, right? But there's always just something to
there's
for
got
it to
be
live
an
in,
item.
for the curse to live in. And then they end up obviously confronting this tree. And I bookmarked this because I thought it was a tremendous moment again. So one of them is going up the tree, and the tree has a hollow in it. So he's trying to take a lantern and look down inside the tree. And it says, up went the gardener again with the lantern, and let it down the hole cautiously. They saw the yellow light upon his face as he bent over, and saw his face struck with an incredulous terror and loathing before he cried out in a dreadful voice and fell back from the ladder, where, happily, he was caught by two of the men, letting the lantern fall inside the tree. He was in a dead faint, and it was some time before any word could be got from him. But then they had something else to look at. The lantern must have broke at the bottom, and the light in it caught upon dry leaves and rubbish that lay there for a few minutes. A dense smoke began to come up, and then flame, and to be short, the tree was in a blaze. The bystanders made a ring at some yards distant, and Sir William and the bishop sent men to get what weapons and tools they could, for clearly, whatever might be using the tree as its lair would be forced out by the fire. And so accidentally drops a lantern and it sets the entire thing afire, and you just hear this torturous noise, this screaming from inside the tree. Oh, it's really eerie. It's so wonderfully done, and certainly for the characters in it, it leaves this really lingering feeling where, well, the curse has now been fulfilled in a way because it killed off the last member of that family. Right? That family that killed the witch has now been ended.
Yeah.
There's no mention of Richard having a son, from what I remember. And so, yes, the tree, the curse is lifted, but it did its job and it got its revenge.
I did indeed. I'd say it's probably the most sort of physical, most incarnate threat that M.R. James uses in this collection. And the image of the guest sort of like hacking these burning little weird creatures that come out, these spider-like creatures that are coming out of the tree, is quite fantastic. And again, just the right amount of detail given. There is one aspect to it that stuck out to me, in that they have to go to some detail to sort of give folklore details that I think have passed out of memory.
Right.
So the explanatory notes I've got in this collection talk about being buried on the north side of the church, being a bit of a bad sign. It's not a place of honour, or the reference to the ash tree itself, like not sleeping with an ash tree near to your house, is an old custom that one of the guests remembers.
Right. Okay. Oh, that's very interesting.
Yeah, and
just goes to show the meticulousness of James's writing.
Oh, totally. It's very helpful to have it mentioned and highlighted, and it sort of, when I read these old stories, it impresses on me the sort of things that have passed out of cultural knowledge. And it always makes me wonder, like, what are we missing from stories? Just because something that would be there as a kind of potent symbol, we now have to consciously go and look and interrogate. And if we've had to, I think, go and do the research to find out what the thing meant, I don't think it hits us on as emotional a level.
Yeah, I agree. I agree. Let's talk about number 13 then.
Yes.
Because that's next in the canon. Now, trivial little side note. I remember as a young child being told that the number 13 is an unlucky number. Right. I remember this being a thing. This was actually to the point where, remarkably, and it goes to show how well this superstition about 13 has held up, that when I was born in Scunthorpe, but we moved out to a village, one of the neighbouring villages, when I was about 14. And we were the first family to move into this house that had been built in the village. And this house was number 15. However, it, by rights, as the row of houses gone, it should have been 13.
Oh, so they skipped it.
And they skipped it, right? And that's in my own life, right? And so it became 15. So they skipped 13 on my street. And that's here in the 21st century. And I remember as a child being told, 13 is it's bad luck. It's an unlucky number. And so I, being an arch contrarian, decided I was going to make it my lucky number. And so I made 13 my lucky number. And then I since fell out of the practice of having a lucky number at all. Not believing in those. But nonetheless, that was a thing in my life for a certain point. And so it was really great to have a story where that was the theme, just the number 13 being the source of, of the bad luck itself.
Yeah, it's a wonderful segue, actually. It's unintentionally very handy that we can segue from that discussion about older superstitions to one that's very much living. And people will know. I think you do still get 13 dropped today. Not everywhere. People probably know about the equivalent in Japan of you don't have a fourth floor, because of the number 4 sounding like the word death, used to great effect in the Silent Hill games. On a far more trivial level, back in 1980, the producers of Friday the 13th were able to raise their money entirely from just making a poster that said Friday the 13th, terrifying movie. And people were like, yeah, that sounds legit.
Yeah.
And you just think, what kind of cultural connotation must that have, that 13, that you can just put that on a poster and people say, yeah, that sounds like a scary movie. Have some money. When they did that, by the way, they had no idea what the film would be about. They literally just had a poster and a title.
Wow, that's remarkable. I haven't actually seen the film myself, but if it gets your recommendation, I'll probably give it a go at some point.
I won't drive us too far down my particular obsession, but you can skip Friday the 13th itself. It's well known, but I wouldn't say of particularly high quality.
All right, that's all right. I trust your judgment. So Friday the 13th is number 13 is set in Denmark, right? So we're back on the continent.
Yeah.
In the town of Viborg.
Yes.
And our antiquary, antiquarian, he's gone there to look for again religious antiquaries, and he's checked into room number 14, right, on this floor of this hotel, first floor. And I love the way that this one works, that he walks past the room number 13 only shows itself at night.
Yes.
And therefore, when he opens his window, our man in number 14, he opens his window and you can see against the hotel wall, there is just another wall, like a blank wall. And so you can see the shadows of the people in the other rooms. You can see the guy in number 12 and on the other side of him. And then there's this one in number 13. And the thing is that when he goes the next morning, there is no number 13. Oh, that's just terrific. That's great.
Again, like the Mezzotint, fantastic device for giving you striking imagery and delivering the scares and building the picture that he sort of originally thinks when he's seeing this, oh, he's confused, or was he drunk, or he can't find a thing, oh, the servants must have moved it. And you're piecing together that when number 13 manifests, it's literally taking up the space and crushing the other rooms. And the mechanism for that, who knows? But it's just, I'll say uncanny when you think about it. Suddenly I had 4 windows, but now I've got 2 because number 13's taken up 2 of them.
I swore I booked this room because I thought it had a good space to it.
Yeah.
And now I'm crammed in. What's going on? This is, really eerie. And it turns out the entire thing is born out of because he goes to the church, doesn't he? And he finds some documents pertaining to a Nicholas Fracken, I think it is, who's just regarded as a foreigner, probably Dutch or German, something like that, who seemed to be a man of bad character in the 1500s, who practiced alchemy. And
slightly scandalously connected to the bishop in some way. And given his own location, housed somewhere, though we know not where. And you start to think, okay. Slowly piecing it together, you can assume it's the inn he's staying at.
The inn has been built on top of where this Fracken chap used to do his experiments and he used to stay. And so is the neighbour in number 13, is that Fracken? Is it his ghost? Is it some creature that he invented? You have no idea whatsoever.
You only see this silhouette across the wall in the night when you're half awake and a slightly red light and hearing James does this so much where you just hear something that you can't be sure about, but something in an adjacent room or something in a floor above, and that's, I think, really unsettling stuff.
Yeah.
Far worse than, Goblin with a machete.
Yes.
Just
something
unsettling enough and unclear enough to set you on edge and leave you craving the resolution of knowing what it was. And he will not give you that.
No. In fact, that noise that he hears in the next room from number 13, that draws his neighbour in as well, doesn't he? Because he starts knocking on our man's door. I can't remember the name of the protagonist of... Oh, Mr. Anderson. That was it.
There we go.
Yeah. Knocks on Mr. Anderson's door. And he says, would you mind keeping that down? You know, but it's not him. And so now all of a sudden you've got Anderson and his neighbour and the actual hotel manager.
Yes.
Who are all three of them together, deciding not to split up.
Yeah.
And that they will go and confront the problem head on.
Yep, they're almost horror literate before it's a thing. No, we're not going to split up. Stupid idea.
Yeah, and so they go to number 13, and they test it, and it's locked. And so they decide, well, we're going to break it down.
Yeah.
And this was a fantastic moment where they go to hit the door, and you just hear the sound of their instrument just hitting solid wall.
Yes.
And at the sound of it, and it obviously sends just from the force of impact, sends a vibration down the chap's hand. And so it's, and they look away. And all of them look to his hand, you know, to just as he reacts to hitting this. And they look back and the door's just not there.
Yeah.
The door's just gone and he'd hit a solid wall.
It's a fantastic moment because it's like this applied rationality, kind of like in the Mezzotint. It's like men of science, of reason, encountering something weird, and they're testing it. And in this case, if the door is there, we can hack it down. And they're met with that question of, actually, no, what your one set of your senses shows you a door, another set of senses is telling you it's just a wall. Now what are you going to believe?
Yeah.
There's a bit before it as well that I thought you would probably appreciate, of another one of those odd little comic interludes of the big burly chaps brought in to break down the door aren't going to do it, and he basically shames them, like, oh, well, I suppose I could go and get some Germans, you know, some real men.
Yes, he does, doesn't he? Yeah. And like, oh, we'll come back with the stuff then, won't we?
Yes.
So, yeah. Don't want any more German immigration.
Nice bit of
taking our jobs. No,
chauvinism in there.
Yeah.
I loved it. And it's very funny moment.
Wonderful. And so I thought number 13 was fantastic and really one of the more ghostly of the stories. But of course, that is not the most ghostly, which we'll get to. I think before we do that, let's just talk about Count Magnus. Shall we?
Oh, could I pivot one tiny point onto number 13?
Please.
Just that I thought it was quite an advanced story in its concept. So we've had our ghosts, we've had demons, or things that are probably demonic. We've had straight up ghosts. We've had a kind of phantasmagorical, weird creature inhabiting a tree. I think this idea of a room that may or may not be there is quite a nice abstract concept, quite advanced to see turn up in horror, and it just really impressed me for the kind of thinking M.R. James is doing. The idea of a non-Euclidean liminal space, an idea that would be explored in greater depth in House of Leaves, which went fully postmodern with it, and is a very interesting read of its own.
Oh, sure. Give it a go.
Yeah, it's quite maddening. I'll try not to take us off topic, so we can talk afterwards about it. I don't think it would quite fit into Chronicles, but I think you might find it fascinating.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, just a nice idea about this idea of a room that may or may not be there struck me as a really, really interesting creation.
And what's more as well, the fact that because these men are products of their own time and the Age of Enlightenment and rationality, whatever Fracken did back in the 1500s to create this, whether this alchemy, this occult practice, to basically create this shifting hidden space, they're not able to recreate that. That's lost magic. It's lost forbidden wisdom.
Yes.
they've no way of understanding this achievement,
Yeah.
which will frustrate them as well. So Count Magnus, keeping up with our Scandinavian theme, is set in Sweden. And Count Magnus, we mentioned it earlier, didn't we? Because he seems to have been someone who, again, was a practicer of the occult and some forbidden arts.
Yes.
The Black Pilgrimage.
Yes, that seems to be an invention entirely of M.R. James, but was apparently taken up enough that other writers would start referring to it as if it were real. Like, he seemed to have created that legend, which I think is quite impressive. Yes, we're getting again an aristocrat seeking immortality via very diabolical means, and hidden knowledge being locked away in a room that you're not meant to go in. Like, these elements are recurring in the stories because they're sort of the mainstays of ghost stories. They've got to reoccur, but the way they're melded is very interesting.
It's a wonderful aspect to it as well. Just actually, there's a lot in that name of just Black Pilgrimage, because obviously a pilgrimage is deeply Christian, deeply spiritual, supposed to be about going on a great journey towards peace, the rest of your soul, service to God, putting yourself beneath the presence of another, doing something selfless in order to obviously practice your faith. And so the idea of it being a black pilgrimage, right? It's perverse, it's inverted. You're going on this for yourself. You're going on this so you can obtain something forbidden, something unknown, something that is supposed to be beyond the remit of natural law. And this seems to be what Count Magnus is doing.
Yeah, he is, just like the Black Mass is the inversion of a typical mass used for infernal worship. Magnus is, a great man, but he is the inversion of what an aristocrat should be. He is not caring for his charges. He even seems to, when he wants to get his hand on some land, or there are some houses, and the way he burns them down in winter with the families inside, he's the inversion of what you want from a good aristocrat. Absolute embodiment of evil, and goes on this black pilgrimage, I suppose, again in an inversion. Instead of that vision of the ash tree, of the value of perpetuating your lineage and passing things down through the generations, he is like the worst kind of boomer, just after immortality, keeping his land and property forever.
Yes.
They didn't have cruises at the time. If they did, he'd have been on them, presumably. Sorry, terrible joke. But yeah, he represents an inversion of morality. And James is once again drawing on his real-life expeditions, as he did with the trip to Viborg.
Oh, really?
He went there, so he's just sort of building that story for number 13 off his notes. Real places he went to, similarly for Count Magnus.
And the fact that it's a sarcophagus as well. It's like, well, if he'd have died naturally and being a good Christian, surely he'd be in a cemetery under the ground. But well, you need a sarcophagus so you can keep getting out of it. Of course, it's the world becomes a bit more accessible when you're dead in a sarcophagus and when you have 6 feet of soil above you.
It's that nice realization that you have of, that's why it's gone like that. Another, if we're doing our drinking game here, this is another person who comes undone because they keep seeking forbidden knowledge. In this case, our protagonist he's looking around and he realizes he knows where the key to the locked mausoleum is. Sorry, I forgot the word. The locked mausoleum, and he's already thinking very openly, oh, I could get in there. Oh, brilliant.
Don't do it.
Forbidden knowledge, I'm going to seek it already. And just like Magnus, who already sought it. I think that's one of the ones where we get a framing device around the papers, isn't it? Where we already have the foreknowledge that this protagonist perhaps doesn't make it.
Yes, that's right, and indeed he doesn't.
Mm,
And there's this entire, it's about a page and a half,
mm,
just dedicated to the final page and a half, where he gets back to England,
mm,
and there's just this sense of being watched, being followed,
mm,
something sinister about, and he stays
mm.
at this hotel for the night and never leaves it because he's killed by whatever he unleashed, what dark spirit he unleashed from,
Mm,
uh, yeah, the sarcophagus from the tomb when he unlocked.
mm.
Because one of the other locks, there was 3 locks on it, and
Yeah,
he undid one of the locks.
yeah. I felt there was an interesting bit of unreliable narrator in there. I had to reread it a few times,
Mm.
and my take on it was that he was just straight up lying to us
Mm.
when he's like, "Oh goodness, I can't. How did this lock come undone? Who knows?" We're like, "Well, you were already planning to break in yourself.
Yes.
I think you probably broke that lock. I
Mm.
think you did it."
Yeah,
Um,
that's a good point. Yeah.
I'm not as certain. Again, it's kept quite vague.
Mm. But I think your explanation's definitely the most plausible as well. Definitely the
Mm,
most plausible. He and yeah, it sort of it centers it, doesn't it, around the fact that, as you say, our narrator can only deal with the information that he has, and
mm,
so if he finds a document saying, "Well, I only broke one,"
mm.
then but that doesn't fully explain why he's not here to tell the story himself.
Yeah.
So,
No one else would want him to see it. They're hurrying him out and
mm,
basically not wanting him to be around the tomb too much.
mm,
So yeah, that was the impression I got. And we have a nice little callback, a vague hint to the previous story, and just one of the last things he's doing is returning by canal and just keeping a note of who's a guest on there.
mm,
And there are these 2 extra people unaccounted for, one of whom looks like number 13, so looks like guest number 13, but getting to throw in 13 again for added spooks.
mm.
Yes, and we work out it's Magnus and the odd little familiar that he's managed to bring back with him.
Yeah, terrifying,
Yeah.
really terrifying. I think one of the darkest stories, definitely one of the darkest stories in there. But let's talk about probably one of the probably most famous story actually from this collection then, which is I always say, "Oh whistle and I'll come to you, my lad,"
Yes.
which I believe is a reference to a Robert Burns
Mm.
poem,
Yeah.
which is of a very different tone, much more
Yeah.
much more merry.
Designed
And
to be a slightly flirty ballad.
yes, and so this is obviously to come back to what you're saying about the irony, right? It's an ironic title
Yes.
because what's coming to this lad is yeah, a little more supernatural and sinister. So he's on the Suffolk. Is it Suffolk? Yeah, Suffolk coastline at Burnstow, and there's a hotel there, and again he's going to see some friends in a few days and have a few games of golf whilst he's there with the colonel, and he finds this flute, this whistle.
Yeah, digs it up.
Yeah.
Digs it up when he's looking for what he thinks is an old Knights Templar.
Mm.
I can't remember the phrase he used for it, but let's just say a building. I can't remember the specific term. But he's digging around there. It's already got a whiff of the heretical to it, and just ill-advisedly, he digs out the little flute.
Yes.
With inscriptions on it from there.
And it's a wonderful idea, I think, to incorporate the Templars into it as well, because obviously, from a historical point of view, I feel like the downfall of the Templars and a lot of the charges of corruption that were made against them were concocted by the king because he owed them an enormous amount of money and was becoming envious of the fact that they were a rival castle. They were becoming very, very powerful. However, the point is that at the time, they were accused of all sorts of abominations and bad practices and sin. And so the idea that these Templars, who, you know, are long gone from England, and, you know, even their Catholic faith now has been, you know, obviously built over by the Church of England, but he finds this flute, and he, well, what else can you do with a flute but give it a little whistle? And
You've
so
got
he
to,
does.
you know, it invites it.
Yeah.
It's, again, it's this great sort of subtextual theme of visiting a town where the sea is reclaiming the land. I think that in sort of, you used to have a huge amount of land separating it in the sea, and now there's but some 60 yards. It's getting at this idea of the intemporality of things, the great doom coming for institutions, possibly even all the modernity that is basically what our protagonist Parkins has built his life on. You know, he's rejected the old ways, and he's a rational man, and rather he's quite Reddit, really, isn't he?
This is one of the stories as well where they actually have a conversation about belief in the supernatural, right? That doesn't always happen. Yes, they are rational, but it's nice to actually hear your protagonist reject it before coming to face with it. Yeah, certainly something that is brought in this particular one. And as you say, there's something, I could say, it's remarkable how he creates this atmosphere of suspense and anticipation from the sea.
Yeah, it's like it's telling you about this sort of inevitability. You know, the great things will fall. The Templars were a massive organization. Now they are, you know, basically you're having to dig their buildings up. But nevertheless, something remains. Something you may not understand remains. You know, maybe like the room in the west side of the house that you should avoid and not sleep in. Just trust us, don't do it. These things we don't understand, but they remain, they have power. It's, yeah, it sort of makes you wonder what else will fall. I mean, I'm maybe not explaining this very well, but it comes up over and over again when you have protagonists going around the countryside and just basically seeing how things have kind of decayed. And you get the sense of the older glory is gone. And that's sort of applying, you know, when that's in the adaptations, it's applying to M.R. James' own time. You know, we're looking back on it, and a lot of those old ways, they've just gone now.
Yeah.
And we have our own sort of version of the whistle we're digging up. Maybe I'm drawing too much from that.
I think it's a great point. And also, what's more, this is one of the stories where, again, we're blessed with an actual sketch from James. Goodness me,
McBride. Your cover actually has one of the engravings on it.
Yes,
from
it does.
This very story.
The ghost from this particular tale. Again, we'll get the editors to put a clearer picture for you up. But obviously, I had to take a part here,
of course,
from the reading to just set the scene a little bit for the reader. He's in a room that has 2 beds, but he's the only actual resident inside this bedroom, and he's blown on this whistle. And even the colonel, right? The colonel, he's been out and he's had a game of golf with this colonel, and the colonel, you can tell, is actually quite superstitious, right? He says, you know where I am if you need anything. He shows him this whistle, and so the colonel is anticipating something going terribly wrong tonight. And then you have our protagonist wake up. It says, I can figure to myself something of the professor's bewilderment and horror, for I have in a dream 30 years back seen the same thing happen. But the reader will hardly, perhaps, imagine how dreadful it was to him to see a figure suddenly sit up in what had been known as an empty bed. He was out of his own bed in one bound and made a dash towards the window, where lay his only weapon, the stick with which he had propped his screen. This was, as it turned out, the worst thing he could have done, because the personage in the empty bed with a sudden, smooth motion, slipped from the bed and took up a position with outspread arms between the two beds and in front of the door. Parkins watched it in a horrid perplexity. Somehow, the idea of getting past it and escaping through the door was intolerable to him. He could not have borne, he didn't know why, to touch it. And as for its touching him, he would sooner dash himself through the window than have that happen.
That's nice. I mean, it's kind of interesting. On one level, we are literally talking about a spirit in a bedsheet, like the stereotypical ghost costume.
Right. Yeah.
But,
very, like your platonic ghost.
Yeah. But it's powerful. It's very powerful. And that image, yes, of just suddenly the empty bed arises. That is terrifying.
It is. And what's more as well, it's because it still works with this unknown. It's like he doesn't want to touch it. Well, if you touch it, all you're going to feel is a bed sheet.
Yeah.
Right? What you feel every time you make your bed and you get up in the morning. But beneath that bed sheet is this spirit of ill will. And it's certainly not benevolent. He makes a point in another quote that obviously there's nothing wrong with a friendly ghost, but they're for fairy tales.
Yes.
And always it needs to have evil intent behind it in his stories. And so you have this, this ghost, true, genuine, and he has no way of getting out of this room. And so it's exactly as you see there, it's like towering over him at this point. And he's at the point where he's like, well, I guess I'm just going to die.
Yeah, jump out the window and be gone. And James keeps the power by not over-explaining, not overplaying his hand, and it's interrupted so that you wonder, what would have happened? Because it's so much in the protagonist's head, spelling it out to you. I don't know what it would have done. And so much of it is the kind of the projection of the protagonist. And it's very powerful.
Leaves him wrestling with all those unknowns. And fortunately for him, the Colonel barges into his room and saves him. But as soon as he obviously goes in there, just disappears. So again, the Colonel didn't really see anything. He just heard the screams and obviously came to help. And so you're left, Parkins is just left with this.
We're sort of stuck in a sort of really ambiguous place here of, are we with that unreliable narrator, this sort of arch rationalist, and has he just been denying for reasons only hinted at? This is one of the stories that tends to draw the most focus for the sort of analytical potential. And I wonder it draws maybe too much because of maybe a slightly modern focus on the biographical implications that people are saying, like, this hints a bit more at M.R. James' personal life, therefore that's one we dig into. Some of the interest might be slightly prurient, I think, but nevertheless, it is a powerful story to look at in that lens, and I think that's quite justified to do.
Could you tell me a little bit about that?
Sure. I think we have to be wary about putting a modern interpretation on things and say, like, slapping an identity label on James. I'm not going to do that. I don't know anywhere near enough, and I haven't read, any comprehensive biography of his, so I'm not going to risk it. But he was a man who never married, who stayed within institutions, focusing on sort of much more platonic relationships. And so the one with McBride, who did the two of the engravings or illustrations for the collection, was incredibly dear to him. He wrote some very moving testimonials to McBride, went out of his way to have a work of McBride's published by Cambridge University Press, even though they wouldn't typically do this for what was really just a children's book.
Right.
But it was a real tribute that
and he also took
James
on
wanted to do.
McBride's young daughter Jane, didn't he, as his ward?
I didn't know that, actually.
After she died. After he died, he took on his young daughter.
I know he sort of tried to see that McBride's widow was looked after. So really just being a great friend after life.
Yeah.
Now, saying all that, people recently, and in this collection, the person writing this and doing the explanations has done a very good job. You detect a certain ideological leaning from them that they do a fairly good job of not making too explicit, but you get they have a bit of a progressive mindset.
Okay.
What can you do?
They're in academia.
The implication is because he never married, he may have been closeted in some way. It's not really something I want to delve into, but you can read in this a certain rich subtext of the fear of the man who's sort of on his own at night. He's got another bed beside him available. A lot of his terror is in seeing that actually someone's been in the other bed. And this is not necessarily a fear of, say, any homosexual temptation. It could literally just be a fear of a sort of any kind of intimacy. Parkinson's, I'm going to mess that up over and over again.
That's all right.
Parkins
Yes.
Does his best to kind of keep people away. And I think that's as valid a reading as any other.
Yeah,
that he's wanting to keep people distant.
Yes.
To the point that his colleagues clearly tease him about it. Professor Rogers.
Oh, yes.
Basically makes him say, "No, I don't want you to come with me."
Yes. Oh, yes, he does at the beginning, doesn't he?
Yeah.
And then when Rogers turns up at the end, it's like, maybe it's not so bad you're here, actually, after all.
Indeed.
Yeah.
But there's a certain psychosexual subtext you could get from that. The fear of, have I slept in the other bed? Has someone been in the other bed? Like the contact with the bed sheets. You could read that. And
it's an interesting theory, but it doesn't. You don't. It's certainly not required in order to obviously really enjoy the story, nonetheless.
Yes, this book tries to make quite a bit out of it. I was not sold.
No.
Possible, but I'm not sold, and I think we have enough to say it's enough for this to be someone who is just terrified of intimacy of any kind and shooing people away.
Right.
But there's a bit of a telling line that of all the phrasing, the Colonel does say, was it before the sort of big final nightmare sequence, there is the Colonel saying, "You know where I'll be if you want me tonight," which I thought, yeah, that's sort of grist for the mill for academic publishers.
Yeah.
They can't resist a line like that.
They'll love that, won't they?
There was one other thing on O Whistle, and I'll come to
Oh,
the
no,
lad.
please. Yes, I'm getting ahead then.
Apologies.
No, please.
I had to do the psychosexual stuff because I think people talk about it on the internet. I thought I had to raise
Cut them
it.
off at the pass.
Exactly. The other thing was just my own personal delight at M.R. James sort of making jokes about golf.
Oh, indeed.
So
terrible pastime.
Yes. Just as he's in there, if you haven't read it, there's reference to this lovely shorthand of these people went for golf. You can imagine what they talked about, and I won't bore the reader. And just a few references, like I'm sure you can imagine what they said. It's quite funny. And another thing to raise is just this has had 2 adaptations. Quite a free adaptation with John Hurt. Recently, I want to say about 2011.
Right.
And that is very interesting to look at in terms of a kind of, I guess, an aspect I raised previously about a sort of sense of downfall. It's back in a seaside town, and I don't know if you've been recently to one of them, but I have a real sense of, the heyday is gone. And you think, oh, I would have loved this when this was at its peak.
Yes.
And it's just sort of, you sense the Britain of a past that was lovely is there, and it's slightly unsure of itself now.
Oh yeah, there's so many seaside towns in Britain these days that have fallen so far from the Victorian Edwardian heyday because of course now people choose to go abroad for the summer because they have that choice, and so obviously these places where you could basically count on the entire population of England going, when they had a bit of money for a summer holiday. It's now not getting that money, and you've got places all along my coast, in Lincolnshire, Cleethorpes, Mablethorpe, Skegness, you're just getting run down, and so the idea of this having this haunted seaside town with this ghost is, really a great place to set a story.
Yeah, it's very powerful, very powerful. So I'd highly recommend that. Maybe 2011, apologies, adaptation with John Hurt.
Yeah, I'll watch it. I mean, I love John Hurt. How can you not?
Yeah.
All right, final story. I've got the Treasure of St. Thomas. And what I like about this one is that actually he messes with the order of the story a little bit here. So actually, rather than the character going through this journey and discovering this ghost, the story actually starts just after that. And you get the friend who comes to Mr. Somerton, who is, and his assistant, William Brown, and they've already had the supernatural experience. And actually, it's just him recounting what he saw to his friend. And so you get this whole thing where he's trying to come to terms with what he's just seen. So this creates a nice little difference, because normally, if they survive, you never really get their thoughts after. Whereas with this one, it's him just saying, well, I was, we went down into this well, and basically the whole idea is that you had this Abbot Thomas who had left some sort of treasure hidden. And again, he's so smug with himself. Oh, I can crack this code. I can, figure out this Latin, and we can, I'll use German or Latin, but I'll figure it out. And he essentially goes down into this well, and it's great because it's obviously in the dark, and he's reaching his hand inside, and he says, and I felt this leather, and you're like, oh, is it a bag? Or is it a limb? Or is it some old decrepit limb? You've no idea. And he can't sit, so he's just holding it. And then you have this image of something getting thrown onto him and hugging him in the dark, and him obviously panicking, crapping himself, all the rest of it. And his friend William running further up the stairs. And so you've got these two testimonies of two different people, and they each saw different things. And they each, but again, it's full of all those rich themes of trespassing, and there was obviously some sort of supernatural guardian there to ward away people who were trying to claim this treasure.
Yeah. Again, a warning against the material interest. I confessed to you before we started this. I did not manage to read The Treasure of Abbot Thomas.
Yes.
So I apologise for that. So
right.
How did that sit for you in the collection? How do you sort of rate it or compare it to the others?
It was good. It wasn't one of my favourites. That's one thing to say. There's not a bad story in here, right? They're all enjoyable. It's just that I think some really stay with you. Really stay with you. This one was good, and so I won't linger on it, other than to say that it deals with many of the things that we've obviously talked about at length at this point. And so, you'll undoubtedly enjoy reading it. It's great suspense as they go down the well. It has this, you really just breathe at the end of it because it's the final story. And so, it was really, really good. Now that we've discussed all of the stories, so is the Mezzotint's your favourite?
Absolutely. But I will go with you, and I'll trust your opinion on the Treasure of Abbot Thomas. I don't think there is a bad story in here. None of them were snorefests. None of them felt repetitive. If you analyse them, you can say, okay, there's a definite pattern here.
Yes.
But even within that, you feel James is aware of that, and he's adjusting it and keeping it fresh. So Treasure of Abbot Thomas has clearly adjusted the formula. Let's explore that from a different temporal stance. Or with Count Magnus, let me present you the information in a new format. Someone has discovered the papers. So there's lots of variety in there.
Definitely. And I think it's a testament to his skill as a writer as well, that, as you say, they're written in a way that they wouldn't have to be ghost stories. That they could just be charming little stories about these very, like I say, very archetypical English professor characters going about in these lost places looking for secret knowledge. But the fact that he incorporates so many different types of demonic evil, from across various European cultures and different eras of civilization, it creates a collection of stories that kind of celebrate tradition, right? That it's a celebration of our traditions, of our folklore themselves. And it's really, really remarkable that as well you can see that reactionary theme within the story where it's warning you against like the Faustian spirit of just going too far, of looking for things that should be beyond your reach. And yeah, I'm thoroughly glad that you recommended the book.
You are very welcome. You phrase it wonderfully. This is a chap who has great interest in the past and great reverence and fear of it. He firmly believes in Chesterton's fence. He loves the country. He doesn't want it torn down. He wants things to stay in their place, and he did everything he could in his career to be a bit of a bulwark against modernism and secularism. He was skeptical of the future, and he was, reverent of the past.
What a sensible fellow.
Alive. Absolutely.
Sensible fellow. Well, Chloe, thank you ever so much for joining me. It's been wonderful to have this conversation with you. We'll have to talk about another horror-themed piece of literature sometime in the future. Do you have any other comments about James or about that you want to relay?
Well, just to say, if people want the classic version of Ghost Stories of an Antiquary, we've got the 8 Tales, and you can pick that easily. And if you really get a taste for them, he published multiple other times, so there's about 30 stories that you could find. I'd recommend, you might want some explanatory notes to really get the full depth out of them. And if people enjoy M.R. James, there is an interesting modernization that people might want to explore, as well as the adaptations. There is a modern project that was very inspired by him and just calls itself Ghost Stories. That was written by Andy Nyman and Jeremy Dyson. Very horror literate people, very much fans of the classic horror, and they tried to do a modern spin of it, but not in a way that would deserve the natural dread when you hear that.
Yes.
The word modern spin. Yeah, it's a very appreciative take on ghost stories set in a modern context, and I think it's a nice companion to these stories if people want to sort of add that onto their reading as well.
Oh, excellent. Well, more than anything, of course, do go and subscribe to Proper Horror Show. Go subscribe to the YouTube channel because it's wonderful. And, other people from the show, Harry and Josh, they've visited a few times, haven't they? And done some work with you. And so it's great content. Do go and follow it. Thank you for coming in. Go and read some ghost stories, and we'll see you for the next episode of Chronicles. Farewell.